Well, it's January the 2nd, and apparently we have a whole new situation developing here on the election. Just when you think things have kind of gone in a direction that it was going in, it's something new's popped up. We have 11 senators, led by Ted Cruz, are joining with many members of the House to contest the electors, and I'm sure in the several states there that are in contention. And so I don't think anything fundamentally differs from my previous analysis of the ultimate outcome because I just don't see the Democrat controlled House actually voting to decertify any of the Democrat electors, and therefore the ultimate outcome is seems to be what it will be. However, it's escalated to the point that there's a lot more people involved in this project now, and one problem would be how much can one senator actually maintain the necessary engagement to go through all these different challenges. And we don't know exactly what challenge strategy is going to be used, and we don't know how the leadership is going to react to it in the Senate. As we know that the majority, I think, of the Senate has accepted the electoral outcome, including the Republican caucus and Mitch McConnell, figuring that basically I think that the challenge is ultimately futile, so why blow up the thing, so to speak. On the other hand, many of us, myself included, believe there was significant election fraud in the election. I mean, my general thinking is this, that first of all, we have a lot of different documentations. The Navarro report shows enough challenge things without even getting into claiming hacking or the Dominion issue, just dealing in terms of people that voted that shouldn't have been voting, dead people voting, that whole story. So I'm convinced that at least some of the states in question certainly were probably taken by fraud, and probably enough to change the outcome of the overall election. Even if Navarro's numbers are somewhat on the high side, you still have that potential that at least Arizona and Georgia should be in the other column, and I think quite likely Pennsylvania. And so, and I think that would be enough, I believe, to get us to throwing it into the 12th Amendment House situation. If Wisconsin comes along, it's enough for a win. And then we can always talk about Michigan, which may be the one that really might actually belong in the Biden camp. I mean, I'm not sure each of the states we went for, we got all of them. Didn't need all of them. Okay. So that's kind of my assessment of it. Now, what's going to play out here is going to be kind of interesting, to say the least. Are we going to just go for what I think is logical, that is to say, challenge delegation by delegation, because we have 7 sets of alternate electors that have submitted votes, okay, even though they're not authorized or by the state itself to do it? Or are they going to actually try to drag it out forever long game of going after each elector by elector? I question whether that's really valid, but again, it has been done before in some of the Democrat attempts where they went for subsets. I don't see how one elector is different than the other. If one's invalid, they're all invalid for a given delegation. And that would probably reduce the time period in which this engagement occurred to maybe 2 days or so. They're asking, as I understand it, for 10 days to audit the election results. So, I mean, I guess they could be hoping that they're creating such a stir that in order to buy peace and acceptance, they would actually agree to this, which would still be timely enough to get Joe in office in time, if the people feel that that's got to be the outcome. But on the other hand, up to now, the Democrats have not been very open to being fair and evaluated. And even some of the Republicans, I mean, I'm still amazed at the situation in Georgia when they chose to do an audit of the signatures, which they chose Cobb County to do the signature audit in. I mean, that's probably not the county I would expect a significant amount of fraud to have occurred in. I'm amazed that, and I don't know exactly what. I mean, they're claiming there was only 2 errors, which is Amazing. I mean, even if there's no fraud involved, I'd be surprised it was only 2 errors. But at any rate, but I mean, I think everybody just doing their best. To be honest, you'd probably produce 2 errors, but whatever. But what about Fulton and DeKalb County? I mean, that's where the two that I would be most suspect to have problems, not Cobb. So, but at any rate, enough of the details about Georgia there. But so anyhow, I guess that's what's on for the 6th, which makes it kind of interesting, huh? I mean, um, Mike Pence is probably saying, "Why did this have to happen to me?" But anyhow, because now, no matter how it comes out, he'll be hated by everybody, right? If he goes along with the Trump people and tries to help them, he'll be hated by all the Democrats, and if he goes along with the normal standard procedure, he'll be hated by the Trump people. So, I mean, oh well. 4 years of loyalty to Trump, and what does it get you, huh? But anyhow, but at any rate, I do think that this will be an interesting show, if nothing else. I still don't see that any of the challenges are going to get a positive vote in the House, because the Democrats have a small but adequate majority to. I remember every senator on the Democrat side voted to remove Trump from office on a trumped-up, ridiculous charge over the Ukraine telephone call. I mean, so much for being fair-minded. And I've often said about the whole thing is the ultimate reason why you have to think there's some malfeasance going on. If there wasn't, why did the Democrats go so far out of their way to prevent adequate poll watching and observation? If they had nothing to hide, then why hide it? Wouldn't it have been better to let everybody see that everything was on the up and up, and then basically, if it really was on the up and up, we'd have nothing to complain about, right? But instead, they went the full scale the other direction to go, count votes while they told everybody they weren't counting votes because there was a plumbing problem, when in fact there wasn't one, and they were actually counting votes perhaps multiple times. The video, from the State Farm Center and Georgia there. And so forth. So that's why I think everybody is pretty much on edge about the outcome. I think that no matter how this turns out, the Biden election will be a tainted election. And this is just another sign. But at the same time, I'm not sure where this actually goes to. I suppose it will drag the thing out for a few days or a couple of days or something like that. I mean, if it only turns into 7 challenges with 2-hour debates on each of them, plus the time it takes to go to the appropriate bodies, and do they adjourn for the night, or they do it 24/7 around the clock? They have enough senators there to keep up the debate, though, if they do decide to go around the clock. So people taking turns. So, like I said, it's a bit of a surprise development in one way that many jumped into it, but. I guess if nothing else, it will record the protest that we have, and so I guess that's about that. The other thing, of course, we're focused on is the Senate runoffs, which are proceeding. We just apparently have recorded just a touch over 3 million votes to date, and I don't know what that really says. I mean, the last polls I saw showed the Democrats in the Real Clear average just slightly ahead. For the most part, I don't think Survey USA is a particularly good polling organization, and it's weird enough that none of the major normal polling organizations, which the mainstream media loves, such as Quinnipiac, CNN, NBC, Wall Street Journal, and I guess Fox, none of them have actually polled this thing at all. And so at this point, if you're polling it now, you pretty much would be asking people, who did you vote for? And if you haven't voted yet, do you intend to vote? And if you do, who do you intend to vote for? So that would be the kind of poll you'd have. You'd have about maybe, 3/4 of the vote already in, something like that, 70%, 80%, whatever it would be. So that goes to show that that's the situation there. So I would definitely encourage everybody to vote on Tuesday. I mean, I would just totally ignore all this stuff about all the fraud and all that stuff that may or may not be happening. But I think that there's a lot more focus on poll watching now than there was last time. And I think that if, you know, I mean, if we can score the same exact results on the Senate races that we actually had on November the 3rd, we'll win in terms of percentages. If the Democrats get a better outcome than they got on November 3rd, then it's totally up in the air. And so that's kind of the situation on those. And since I'm not in that state, I can't vote in that one. So I'll just be watching like everybody else. And I think that we got David Perdue somewhat sidelined with a COVID quarantine. So such as fate goes in this thing. Kelly Loeffler's still out there campaigning, and I guess he's campaigning virtually. So, and I guess after all, virtually worked pretty good for Joe Biden. So perhaps in this year that won't be the real issue. Well, anyway, I guess I'll wrap this thing up now. If you like these videos, remember to subscribe and give me a like, and we'll just have to see what happens here as we go into the final events of this election cycle.